Hello, you guys, and welcome into episode 2 of the Emmitt Sevores Show. I'm joined by Noah Boelter from the Boelt, from the NFC West Network, good friend, classmate, WSU graduate, just as myself, or just as I am. How you doing today, Noah?
Feeling old with that introduction.
Hey,
That's
graduate.
alum. Oh my
Oh,
gosh. In about 5 months, we're going to start receiving those. Hey, you want to start paying for your alumni membership?
you're
I'm like,
right.
no, I'm still on my first contract. Thank you.
Right. No, it's during graduation they gave you, isn't that what, like, that was what's in our fake diploma, was like the little like 3-year membership to the alumni thing, and I'm like, I'm like, I'm gonna wind up paying for it somehow, so I'll hold on to that until I figure out what your guys' grand scheme of things is. But yeah, today I got to be honest, I don't know exactly how to start off the show. We had a really fun one planned. We were gonna talk obviously about the Packers. We'll still get to that. We'll talk about a bunch of other stuff, but we were really going to have a good amount of fun talking about would have been the AFC North title race, depending on the outcome of the Bills Bengals game. But of course, that game did not get through the first quarter because Damar Hamlin suffered an injury on the field. He had to have CPR administered to him on the field. He was taken to the University of Cincinnati Hospital. There hasn't really been a whole lot of update on his condition since about around midnight-ish last night. The last update we got is that his heartbeat was restored on the field, which is good news. The faster they get that heartbeat, back and going, the better chance he has. Just an all-around really scary situation for everyone involved. Obviously, the NFL wound up, coming to the right conclusion in terms of not letting the game continue. You can't play that game because obviously, if the worst would have happened, and let's say they replay that game and, someone goes on their phone at halftime and they find out during the third quarter or right before the third quarter that he had passed away, it's all around bad things. The NFL wound up doing the right thing. It took them a while. And I'll go into that in a second. But no, I want to get your thoughts on the entire situation first.
Prayers out for Damar Hamlin. Like, this is a kid who was young, second year in the NFL, had an opportunity since early on in the season to step in for a starter and to make a name for himself on a contending team, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL. That is a team that a lot of people we picked as our Super Bowl favorites. And he's stepping up, living his dream. And even on the play when the injury occurred, right? When he gives/takes the hit, because that wasn't a one-way collision. Like that, both players took a shot there. When he immediately bounces up after that play, that shows you what kind of character he had on the football field, where he had a life-threatening injury that he didn't even know about. He wasn't worried about it. Adrenaline and everything. He's like, let's get up, let's go, let's make the next play. That's what makes what happened immediately after so much harder as a fan, as a former football player, to watch, is seeing what kind of heart he had and then seeing him collapse. And when he collapses, everything changes. Players, refs are all, oh my gosh, what just happened? And for them to check on him, we haven't seen anything like this in the modern NFL, not as long as I've been alive, not since well before we both were alive. Have we seen something as crazy as this, where they're getting CPR on the field, they take him immediately to the hospital, and the game, my mother called me, and she was asking me, because she didn't watch, and she's just seeing what people are talking about. And so she's like, no, so like, what happened? Like, why are they? And I told her there's a lot of reasons why that game got canceled and should have been canceled earlier. And I know you're going to talk about that. But for all of those players, what made this so different than all other injuries? Most football injuries are not life-threatening. That's the first thing. Second of all, most football injuries, while yes, they are gruesome, you don't see someone receiving intense CPR, as it was described in the broadcast, right in front of them. You saw players from both teams hugging. While yes, for most injuries, players might go up to the injured player from both teams and support them, they're not usually showing the brotherhood between different uniforms like they did last night, because that was so much bigger than football. And so when you see Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and both coaches on the same page and everyone working together, first of all, they couldn't play again until they found out he is okay. And we still don't know that. From as far as I know, he's still in critical condition. They said they put a tube in him to help him breathe after putting him to sleep. So considering he's still potentially in critical condition, they can't play that game until they know, because like you said, what happens if they start the game and then they find out? That can't happen. For the NFL, for those players, for those people, these are people first, not players. And that's what people need to remember. To talk about a potential, and I know the NFL came out and said that they didn't have any discussion about a 5-minute warm-up period before picking up the game again. The concept that these players could go out there after what they just saw. Emmitt, there was one time, and this is so much less of a story. I was playing high school football, and two of my coaches got into a huge spat in the middle of like the first half of practice, right? And so they get into this huge fight. It almost turns into a fist fight. And like they're going at each other. As soon as that was done, I didn't even want to practice, just because like my mind had been taken off of the game and onto a bigger situation. That doesn't even compare at all to what happened last night. And we were expecting these guys to go out there and play again. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't have taken as long as it did. Anyone talking about the game or the standings afterwards, like Skip Bayless, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, needs to be reprimanded, needs to be told that's how wrong that is. These are not players first. These are people first. And to imagine the injuries that could have come from trying to hype guys back up, not everyone would have been ready to play. And had they played that game, I have no doubt in my mind there would have been a lot more very ugly injuries on that field, because some guys were mentally out of the game, as they deserve and as they should be. So once again, the number one priority is Damar Hamlin's health. Prayers up for him, prayers up for his family. That's where our priority should be, not fantasy football championships, not NFL scores, not NFL standings, but with Damar Hamlin. I almost think, especially, and I think I texted this to the group chat, if this is a permanent injury, or if it's worse, the NFL needs to have an entire bye week at least, where these players can have time to just take time away from the game, take time to be with Damar's family and to see their own family, and to stop taking everything for granted, because this was not it's not the hardest hit we've seen this year. It's not the hardest hit we see in any given game. We see harder hits every week. It can happen to anyone, and we got to stop taking this stuff for granted.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Again, I really hope Damar Hamlin winds up being okay from all of this. His family put out a statement just about an hour ago. So here, I'll put that up on the screen for you guys. This is again via his family. This is the NFL posting it, saying a statement from the family of Damar Hamlin. On our behalf, on behalf of our family, we want to express our sincere gratitude for the love and support shown to Damar during this challenging time. We are deeply moved by the prayers, kind words, and donations from fans around the country. We also want to acknowledge the dedicated first responders and healthcare professionals at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center who have provided exceptional care to Damar. We feel so blessed to be part of the Buffalo Bills organization and to have their support. We also want to thank Coach Zach Taylor and the Bengals for everything they've done. Your generosity and compassion mean the world to us. Please keep Damar in your prayers. We will release updates as soon as we have them. Thank you, from the Hamlin family. I think, I'll kind of work backwards from what you said. One of the really good things about his care, if you don't know a whole lot about me, I've been a lifeguard since I was 15. I have gotten certified or recertified 4 different times. I have my LGI, which allows me to teach lifeguard courses. So I'm teaching CPR, doing CPR. My full-time job's at a pool. I'm working on that every day. Him being able to have his heartbeat restored on the field is a massive step. I believe it's around 5 or 2 minutes without oxygen is when you start seeing brain damage. that sort of stuff. But also the University of Cincinnati Medical Center is one of the best in the country. NFL fans, that's where Tua went earlier this year when Tua had his big hit. A couple of years ago, it's been longer than that now, 5-ish years ago. That's where Ryan Shazier was transported when he had his really scary injury on the field, and he wasn't able to walk. He just started to be able to walk again a couple of years ago, So he's in fantastic hands. It's a level 1 trauma center. Our closest one to me and it's Harborview. If you're going to Harborview, it's usually something very bad. They have surgeons on standby 24/7. Talking a little bit about the injury, I follow this guy Brian Suter. He's a sports doctor. He puts out very interesting videos. I'm sure you might have seen them on YouTube or anything like that. And he's saying one of the things that could be is comatocordis, which in layman's terms, when your heart's beating, there's kind of 3 little things you're looking for. There's kind of like the little piece of electricity before, there's the heartbeat, and then there's a little electricity after as it's charging up for the next one. And if there's a hard enough impact right at that moment before the third little blip, that's what could have potentially caused this. It could also be a brainstem injury. I don't really want to speculate, but that's what a lot of doctors are seeming to look at here. As it doesn't seem like it's anything other than that. It's one of the few things that I think would cause cardiac arrest where his heart stopped. Yeah, but the fact that it took the NFL an hour to come to this conclusion that they should cancel the game. Again, I tweeted it out last night. One, on the whole 5 minutes thing, they've lost the benefit of the doubt on that for me. Like, maybe I could have been like, you know what? Maybe they didn't have those conversations. But if Joe Buck is saying it, it probably means, and it was kind of brought to my attention because I've seen some people talking about it, like the 5-minute warm up after an injury is kind of protocol. Like that's kind of what they do. And whether that's true or not, again, I'm sure the officials had no idea what to do or what was going on. So if the officials told them 5-minute warm up and they didn't, or they obviously didn't continue to warm up, that's fine. But the league, if they would have just come out and said, yes, the officials originally said that, but we were still trying to figure stuff out. If they would have gotten ahead of this and just admitted, like, yes, that is what happened. However, that was never our intention. That was just normal protocol as we were trying to figure stuff out. I think that getting out ahead of it versus when it eventually comes out that they did ask for the 5-minute warm up and then they're going to have to deal with all that backlash. They've lost the benefit of the doubt of them doing anything for player safety. Damar Hamlin was dead on that field. He had no heartbeat, and he wasn't breathing. And it took them an hour to cancel the game. An hour. Listen, like it sucks for the players to have to play after, some of these really gruesome injuries, right? Alex Smith, his bone was sticking out of his leg. Dak Prescott, Ryan Shazier, he was not able to walk.
Joe Theismann.
Joe Theismann, Ricardo Lockett, like all of these really serious injuries. It's hard for players to go after. This guy, Damar Hamlin, was dead on that field. Dead. No heartbeat, no pulse. And the fact that the NFL, it took them as long as it did.
Well, it's not a good look for the NFL because as soon as they got the facts, which was as soon as it happened, is when they should have made the call.
Yep.
Not after they talk to the coaches and they're like, hey, do you think you guys want to play this tonight? Do you think they want to play? No, it's not about that. It's not about if they want to play. It's about doing the right thing.
The decision should have never been in the coaches and players' hands. Thankfully, Zach Taylor, Sean McDermott, all of them got together and were like, we're not playing. Thankfully, that happened. Because again, there's already I can't imagine being more checked out. Like I've definitely done like some shows of the Boelt where it's like I've had something going on in my personal life and I'm checked out. I'm not even listening to everyone else's argument. I say my stuff and I just wait for you to say the next question. I've definitely had shows like that, and that's a show. That is a show where I'm talking about sports. I'm not going out there. Exactly. Like I can't imagine the NFL trying, or I can imagine, because they have made a bunch of stuff clear. They don't really care about player safety. If they truly cared about player safety, one, and I think that if they still wanted to do this, there's a way they could do it. But one, they would get rid of Thursday Night Football if they truly cared about player safety. They would also add a second bye week. If they wanted to keep Thursday Night Football, they would add a second bye week, and you played on Thursday Night Football after your bye week. They have shown over the past however long that they don't care about player safety. They tried to hush all of the concussions and CTE stuff. They've lost all the benefit of the doubt for me. And again, some of the comments you saw last night were pretty disgusting. You mentioned Skip Bayless. I believe he did Undisputed by himself today. Shannon Sharp didn't show up. I haven't been able to watch any of those clips as I woke up probably 20 minutes before our show started.
So he started by going over the timeline of what happened. And then he mentioned his tweet that was getting all the negative backlash, and he tried to explain it. And now I understand that there is some room for interpretation with what he meant by what he was saying, and that some people might take it a way that he didn't intend. But I feel like that's a large part of the problem with the tweet, is that he wasn't clear. And in a situation like this, you have to establish what your priorities are when you have any sort of platform. And if you would have tweeted that, I would have texted you and be like, bro, you can't, like,
Yeah.
you can't say that. Like, at least clarify what you mean. I would delete it and retweet what I really meant if my priorities were in the right place, which Skip is saying that his were, but it also sounded a little bit like, and what people are getting upset about, a lot of people took it as the priority, like, how do you reschedule the game that's this important in the season? And everyone's like, dude, why are you even talking about that right now?
Yeah.
And we saw some really good comments from like IT and Breno Giacomini and some of those guys. They really tore into it. It was kind of funny, but it's terrible.
Yeah. And again, as I said in the chat last night, like, this isn't the first thing he's done. The Dak Prescott thing a couple of years ago, back in 2020, was one of the worst things I've seen. Dak Prescott, his brother, back, I believe it was early or mid 2020, but like before the NFL season or around there, committed suicide. And he was openly talking about, during a press conference, that he was dealing with some sort of depression. He was talking about his mental health. And Skip Bayless said that he was showing weakness. And it's like, if he didn't get suspended or in trouble for that, where are you going to draw the line now? Like it feels, if he would have been suspended before, and then there's some sort of standard for it, and as much crap as I give Adam Schefter, because I don't really like Adam Schefter too. He was really good last night, but two, he's messed up, and ESPN has suspended him. They've suspended him. They suspended him after, I believe it was the Dwayne Haskins situation. They suspended him after his really disgusting Deshaun Watson tweet a while. But Fox Sports has not shown any sort of want to in terms of Skip Bayless to suspend him. And again, it's just really disgusting, and it's the fact that we're here, as opposed, there's plenty of stories that could have, if the hit is a millisecond later, we're not talking about this, or, we are, we're talking basketball. We're talking about, Spida Mitchell dropping 71. We're talking about the Bills potentially clinching the ones. We're talking about all this different stuff. But instead, obviously, we're dealing with a tragic injury, one that, I'm refreshing my Twitter every minute.
We do have breaking.
Well, okay, we do.
We do have breaking, and it's so. First of all, the Bills tweeted, and I think Schefter retweeted that he's still in critical condition. And obviously that's the priority with this news. So he is still in critical condition. But also, we're just finding out that the NFL is not going to play Bills Bengals this week. And they haven't said if they're going to play it at all or when they're going to play it, if they do play it. But they're saying it's not going to be this week, which is the right call.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. The NFL continues to be in regular contact with the medical team caring for Damar Hamlin and also the Bills and Bengals organizations and the NFLPA. After speaking with both teams and NFLPA leadership, Commissioner Roger Goodell informed the clubs today that Bills Bengals will not be resumed this week. The NFL has made no decision regarding the possible resumption of a game at a later date. The league has not made any changes to the Week 18 regular season schedule. We will continue to provide additional information as it becomes available. Yeah, it's not entirely shocking. I think that's true. Like, I think that's the right call. You cannot ask those players to go back on that field this week.
It really depends on what we hear about Damar.
Right. Because if Damar makes it, which again, I'm hoping he is, and I think again a lot of the stuff that we've seen have been good signs. Him getting his heartbeat started on the field, him getting early CPR, him being transported to one of the best medical facilities in the entire country. You know, him having his vitals back. All of that sort of stuff is very good. You know, so if he makes it, this becomes an easier conversation. If he doesn't, I don't know how you ask those Bills players to go back out there.
Any NFL players. It's got to be a bye week. You just restart. If you're going to do anything, have these two teams try and meet next Monday or a week from Monday. Give these players some time off.
Yeah, they're gonna need it. We'll have the, you know, what should they do with the schedule discussion after we find out about Damar Hamlin's health.
Yeah.
So again, once again, really, really hope he pulls through. Thank you to all the medical professionals who are there, who are on the field. Some Bengals team doctors were helping out. So all of them did a fantastic job with this, which again, the craziest part of, you know, the NFL still taking flack from it is, you know, this was an injury that there was no controversy behind. Like, had they canceled the game, you know, shortly after we found out he was getting CPR, we're talking about what a great job the NFL did. We're not talking about concussions. We're not talking about turf fields. We're not talking about any of these controversial subjects. We're just talking about Damar Hamlin's health, which is what we should all be talking about. But instead, you know, the NFL somehow missed a layup. They missed a layup, and it somehow banked in somehow, you know, but they missed the layup on this one. They did the right thing, but not for the right reason. Not for the right reason. They did the right thing because the coaches told them we're not playing, which is really sad. Let's move on to a little bit more light topics, at least for me. And maybe it is a dark topic for you. One, because the Packers won, but two, if you would have just held on to your bet, you would have won a couple of stakes.
I am not ashamed of removing that bet. When I removed that bet, it was a great deal, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
like, this is crazy. You thought I won that too. Like, you would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I thought you folding on the bet was smart. Like, obviously hindsight's 2020, so no, it wasn't. But yeah, I was telling you to fold. I didn't see this coming. The Packers, they crushed the Vikings 41-17. Rodgers didn't even look all that great. Before they even put up any offensive points, they were up 14-3. They got a kick return from Keyshawn Nixon, who at this point in time is the best returner in all of football. He's only been returning kicks for the Packers for, I think it's now 8 weeks or 8 or 9 weeks. And he currently leads the NFL in kick return yards after, again, only doing it for 8 or 9 weeks. He's one of the first players. I think he's one of the 6 players in NFL history to have 7 straight games of at least 95 return yards. I mean, you saw in the Miami game a couple of weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, they squib kicked it. They gave Aaron Rodgers, granted, an Aaron Rodgers who's not looking like he is, but an Aaron Rodgers a short field rather than kicking it to Keyshawn Nixon. Then obviously a Darnell Savage pick six. All three of the Packers safeties on the roster got an interception. So Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, Rudy Ford. The Packers now, they've won their fourth in a row. They play Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff for a chance to go to the playoffs, which is something that however many weeks ago I would not have seen because I didn't think they were going to beat Miami. And after they did beat Miami, I didn't think that they were going to be able to beat Minnesota. Maybe this is all leading up to one final, kick to the stomach. But
no.
I really hope I'm not jinxing myself, but I feel pretty good about it. I feel pretty good about the only thing standing in the way of the Packers in the playoffs is Jared Goff and the Lions. So, there is again, these aren't the same old Lions, but it's hard for me to believe that the Lions are going to live up to this moment. And again, they're going to be a scary roster in a couple of years when they get a quarterback. Again, not all of their problems are on Jared Goff because their defense is so bad. But Jared Goff, I don't expect to outduel Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau with a Packers defense that's all of a sudden, I don't want to say turned it around, but they're hot. They have the hot hand at least. What?
Don't want to say turned it around. You've turned it around.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You can look at it a couple of ways. They have the hot hand. I don't want to say they've turned it all the way around, just because I saw what Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were doing until Tua got concussed. Tua was averaging 20 yards of completion on them, and they've gotten lucky with some third quarter interceptions that were thrown directly to them. It's not like they were fantastic plays. They were thrown right to them. And so, and then this week, even you see two of the interceptions were off of deflections. Another one was on yeah. And then, so, whether you think they're good or not, they have the hot hand. And I truly do like them in this spot against Detroit. What say you?
We may as well lose to the Rams. That's what I say. And it's not like we're going to have to try to. I don't think it was on the agenda. We're talking about who's going to win the wild card spot. I'm going to tell you right now. I think the Seahawks are going to lose to the Rams. I've been saying the Seahawks are going to lose to the Rams since the Seahawks played the Rams last time. Because we got lucky to beat them. And whenever we play the Rams, we don't look good. And whoever they have looks great. No Aaron Donald, no Cooper Kupp, and no Matt Stafford, no problem. Against Seattle, they have our number. And that's what's going to happen on Sunday. So, luckily, the Lions will have something to play for. It's just not going to help us because we'll already be eliminated. Now, talking about the Packers, you come on my show all the time and tell me I told you so. So I'm not going to sit here and feel bad about nothing. I've been telling you this team looks bad. And I get it. It's your team. So you want to sit here and be like, oh, no, I don't feel that confident heading forward. They look great. That game was the most Packers and Vikings I've seen this year. That's the Packers and Vikings I know. With Kirk Cousins throwing dumb passes, interceptions, the amount of kicks that they missed was terrible. And
that right there was classic Vikings. That
right,
missing those kicks is classic Vikings.
Well, and the point swings, right before half, they miss a 50-yarder, which is their second missed field goal of the game. Packers get the ball because they missed it with great field position. Go down, crossbar hits the crossbar, and it goes in from 56. And so that swing of points right there. You talk about how the game started. The Packers got a punt blocked. The Vikings got the ball inside the 3, not the 10, not the 5, the 3, and leave with 3. That sets the tone. And it was the right point, right choice to take the points. But you got to come away with more. And the amount of poor decisions that we saw Kirk Cousins make, I watched the game and then I watched the highlights, and we're going to talk about this too. Did Justin Jefferson play? I didn't even see him because he didn't make plays because of Jaire Alexander. So Packers look good, man. You're going to beat the Lions, whether the Seahawks win or not, which I don't think is going to happen. So, congratulations. You're squeaking into the playoffs. I still think the 49ers are going to kick your butts. But I think there's something to be said for a team that gets really hot towards the end of the year and squeaks in.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to go as far as you are in terms, but like, hey, it was a really good game, and the similarities between this run currently and their 2016, the run the table run, it's quite comical. All of the comparisons. I think that Packers team was a better Packers team in terms of, although their defense was not good, and we saw that when Julio Jones was getting guarded by an undrafted rookie in the NFC Championship game. But like Aaron Rodgers was on a heater, but the last two games of that was at home against the Vikings, and Aaron Rodgers had a hilarious touchdown run where I think he did the pump fake, he juked someone out, and he scampered in the end zone, and he did it again yesterday or on Sunday. And I'm watching that, and that was the first thing that shot into my head was I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, the similarities between these games is hilarious. And then to finish off that season, they went to Detroit on Sunday Night Football and clinched the division. So it very well could happen. And again, I really do like my chances for this one. I haven't felt this confident in a while. That which sucks to say or not sucks to say, like it's good, but which means it's could be a tough fall. Could be a tough fall, especially if my loss means the Seahawks get in. Going to be a rough, whatever day we're doing the Boelt for me. It is going to be a rough day. But man, the Packers team I saw yesterday, or a couple of days ago, was the team I thought we were going to see the entire season. In terms of maybe not putting up 41 points and holding Justin Jefferson to one catch, but 33 rushes, 163 yards, getting almost 5 a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. Rodgers, sad to say it, he kind of looked like a game manager. The only bad thing he really did the entire game is he took a really horrible sack. But 4 plays later and the Packers pick 6. So I mean, no harm, no foul.
It was on fourth down too.
It was a really bad sack. Because again, sometimes you just have to let that one go, but it was a 16-yard sack. It took you from being on, whatever it was, the Vikings 40 to now the Vikings have the ball inside your territory, inside your 45. And so it was a bad sack, but again, no harm, no foul. And we'll talk about the job that Jaire Alexander did on Justin Jefferson in just a short minute, but the Packers defense looked a lot better than I've seen them look all year. And part of that is due to what Joe Barry finally adjusted to. You saw, again, it's hard to talk about him and not talk about Jaire Alexander, but they were pressing at the line of scrimmage. They don't do that. The Packers are the team that it's 3rd and 3 and they have their guys 10 yards off. It's that they finally, for the first time, were like, we're not letting this receiver beat us. It's the thing that I've been wishing that they did. Well, every time we play Justin Jefferson, it's when they played, because again, Packers getting owned by Vikings receivers isn't something new. Stephon Diggs, I think, currently still has a stretch. I think it's 9 straight games where he scored a touchdown against the Packers. Obviously, he played in Minnesota, and then he continued it this year with Buffalo. But it's every time they played him, I just knew Stephon Diggs was going to go and get himself 9 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. It was a guarantee. Bet the over on whatever his yards total is every time. So to see them finally make that sort of adjustment, it makes me feel pretty good. Again, the Packers, I would feel a lot more confident about actual chances in the playoffs, because I think if they face off against San Francisco, they've got no shot. That's not even me trying to oh, maybe you'll reverse jinx. They don't. I've watched this Packers versus 49ers matchup in the playoffs 4 times, and I've watched the Packers lose all 4 times. I don't need to see it again.
Here's what's different, though. Here's what's different, and here's your only shot. We talked about the difference between Davante Adams and Christian Watson. That is going to be huge in this matchup, because we talked about Davante Adams scores a touchdown before he gets to football. Christian Watson scores it after. So you give him a quick screen, he can break it. That's the difference because the pressure from San Francisco wouldn't allow Devontae Adams to get the ball deep down the field and stuff like that. Whereas with the Christian Watson, you get him the ball any type of way and he could pop one. We've seen Brock Purdy, his best game was against Jared Stidham.
Yeah.
Put him against a hot Aaron Rodgers, an improving defense. I wouldn't say you have 0% chance, but like you're trying to say before I rudely interrupted, you have a better chance against the Vikings.
Yeah, no, I'm really hoping that, somehow the Niners lose next week, the Vikings win, then it's a 7-2 matchup. We're going to Minnesota, which I still don't like. I like the matchup for Green Bay, especially after kicking their teeth in, but sometimes that doesn't favor you. Sometimes it's, sometimes you like we saw with Georgia, Alabama last year. I got to be honest, going to come clean. Last year, I didn't think Georgia should have been in the college football playoff because of how bad they got beat by Alabama. I was like, there's no reason we need to see that matchup again. I was wrong, and I'll admit that I was wrong, but it shows that 2 weeks from now, maybe the Vikings are like, you know what? First play of the game, we're testing Jaire Alexander, and maybe, maybe it's on a granted, and Jaire's had a really bad year, and we'll get into it. He's the best corner at defending wide receiver screens I've ever seen. His read on the ball is ridiculous. I'll send you a clip after. There's a clip they were playing in 2019. They were playing against the Vikings, or maybe it was 2018. They were playing at the Vikings, and they threw a wide receiver screen to Stephon Diggs, and they had Adam Thielen out there blocking. Jaire Alexander hits Adam Thielen, who was blocking, into Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
And Stephon Diggs falls down. And so, he winds up falling down, getting back up, running around. But that's one of the things he really does. But I could see them being like, all right, let's just get the ball to Justin Jefferson early. Let's not have his first catch come with, 7 minutes left in the third quarter. So I could see that happening. But let's get into that matchup. Jaire Alexander and Justin Jefferson. It was a really fun matchup for me. Well, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw him, hit the little gritty on him, I was like, oh no, this is setting up for a, 200-yard performance on Jaire's head. But Jaire is one of those corners that, and it can work against him in terms of people will not like him for it with how much he talks, because I know this season, when it's not been his best season, I've gotten frustrated with it too. I'm like, dude, you're putting on the seatbelt after you just gave up a, however many yard catch. Like he did it to Equanimeous St. Brown. It's like, dude, really? This is what we're doing. But that's just who Jaire is. He talks whether he's up, whether he's down, whether he's getting cooked, whether he's making a play. He talks the entire game. And so he played incredible coverage. I've never seen anything like it. They allowed him. This was his probably, if this wasn't his best game, it's top 3. The only other games that I could potentially see that were better is he had a fantastic game. It was his rookie year. They played the Rams. It was the Ty Montgomery fumble taking it out of the end zone game. And he clamped Brandon Cooks. And it was his coming out party. I'm trying to remember. He had another game that was just stellar. But this one might take the cake because it wasn't even it wasn't even a good game where it's it was, 3 catches for 15 yards on they got 1 catch for Justin Jefferson. The best, if you don't think he's the best, he's the second best wide receiver in all of football. That doesn't happen, man. And Alexander got in his head 100%. And I've never seen anything like it because Justin Jefferson talked about it after the game. He was like, oh, he was, doing all these dances, trying to get in my head, blah, 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 blah. We'll see what happens next time we play. It's like, he already got in your head, man. You almost decapitated a ref with your helmet. What are we talking? He was in your head. I'm sure you saw that, Noah. If you didn't,
go for it.
He took off. I think it was after the 3rd interception, and he is trying to make the tackle kind of. And Jaire, he does these little things that they just get in your head. And it's like, I saw it too. And I was hoping that they weren't going to call anything on it. Obviously I think it was too soft for a 15-yarder, but we've seen less get called for more. He gives him a little 2-handed shove. Wasn't anything that sent him off balance, but Justin Jefferson was so upset. He's taking off his helmet. He's about to slam it. and his elbow hits the ref. And again, I don't think that should have been a 15-yard penalty either, because it's not like he was trying to do it. I think a lot of Packers fans have kind of gone off the deep end on that one, and they're like, he should have been kicked out of the game. It's like, chill. He didn't know if he knew the ref was there. Sure. He didn't. Like, he truly didn't. But man, Jaire is a lot of fun to watch when they allow him to be scrappy. He was calling for he wanted the one-on-one matchup in week 1, and the Packers wouldn't give it to him, and they paid the price for it. He's been asking for it all along. And granted, he's another one of the games where he has to travel. He didn't look great. The game against Washington earlier this year, Terry McLaurin tore him one. But this game, this is why, like, I'm not going to say this game made up for the amount of money that they're paying Jaire Alexander, because it's still a lot of money, and he still has really only had one great game this season. But like, games like this is why I understand why he should be one of the top paid corners in all of football. But I'm a Packers fan. I have a little bit of bias. What do you think of the entire matchup, the lead up, the post game, all of it? What'd you think?
I love Jaire Alexander and his energy. Like, I can't stand the Packers, but it takes a certain type of man or person, like people in general, but specifically for football, it takes a certain type of man to talk when you're down, to talk when you're playing bad, to talk when you just got cooked. And that's the best type of person to have on your team, is to have that especially at the cornerback position, because you're going to give up plays. And so for you to be able to give up plays and turn around, talk trash, successfully get in people's heads. Well, yes, he was in Jefferson's head. I think it was more he was in Kirk's head. And that was the bigger story to me, because when Kirk was struggling, Jefferson wasn't just frustrated with Alexander. He was frustrated with Kirk. And it's something that we've seen Vikings fans in the past. You know, we've seen the helmet throw. We've seen people like, come on, Kirk, throw me the ball or whatever. I thought this was a game that could mark the end of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Now, he came in to replace Case Keenum. He was supposed to be an upgrade. He hasn't made it as far as Case Keenum did. There are so many fake teams in the NFC playoffs. If anyone beats the San Francisco 49ers, which I've been saying for months now, I think, if not weeks, the San Francisco 49ers should be the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC at least, because all these teams are sharp and ultra soft. Like the 33-point comeback against Matt Ryan and Jeff Saturday doesn't mean you're a great team. Like that, and we're finding that out because you just lost to a team with a losing record in the Packers, who still owns you, apparently. Like that's what it felt. That's what it felt like. Like, yeah, you're enjoy the hot seat for a minute. Aaron Rodgers is coming back next year, I think.
Yeah.
I think this team is only going to be better. They're going to be back to leading this not so strong division. I think Detroit might finish higher in the division next year than Minnesota.
It's definitely possible. Like I don't think Minnesota's reign is going to last as everyone thinks it does. I saw this exact same thing. And granted, Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky, but like I remember 2018 when the Bears won that division, and Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky, they were the next head coach duo. They were going to run stuff. No, they didn't. Like, you had your 1 year, and then you're back out. Like, the Packers haven't lost the division multiple years in a row since the early 2000s. I don't think. I not that I think that the Packers are necessarily going to win the division next year. And I think Minnesota very well still could, right? Like, they have that defense is horrific, but like they're going to have another offseason to get to pick, to sign free agents, to do whatever. But as long as that man's your quarterback, as long as Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, primetime Kirk, you're not winning anything. Like, you're not. Like, everyone can talk about all the deflections and stuff and all the really bad stuff that went their way. You know what? Like, Kenny Clark strip sacked him and recovered. Like, the strip sack was hilarious. Like, it's like Kirk was waiting to get strip sacked. Like, how do you not? It's not like you got hit from behind as you were trying to throw. He was sitting there in the pocket with the ball and didn't see the dude standing right in front of him. As long as Kirk Cousins is their quarterback, listen, he can throw a hell of a game at the, for us, 10 a.m. window. He can. The second it starts getting later, man, rough. He's rough. Like the Vikings team in general is soft. Like their defense is horrible. They obviously, I think they're better coached than they were with Mike Zimmer, but obviously losing a defensive coach, your defense is going to get worse. The only thing, I guess, the only place we hadn't seen it really all year was obviously Denver, but their offense somehow got worse. Like you weren't going to be able to keep up with what was already a not great defense. You brought back, the 2016 Pro Bowl team. We have Patrick Peterson, Jordan Hicks, Harrison Smith, who's still playing at a really good level. Eric Kendricks obviously is. Danielle Hunter. Zadarius Smith went silent yesterday. Shocker. He started playing. He played against David Bakhtiari, when healthy, top 2 left tackle in the sport, and he went silent. He registered, I think it was a tackle. I think this was the first game all season he's registered no pressures. Zero, not a single pressure. I don't know. The Vikings, I think, and I understand your point 100% with Justin Jefferson being frustrated with Kirk. That even one of the few times in the first half he was going to throw at Jefferson. Like he got lucky that the ball got batted at the line of scrimmage because Jaire undercut it. Jaire had a pick. And can you imagine Jaire if he would have picked off a pass going towards Justin Jefferson? I, as a Packers fan, would not have wanted to see the aftermath of that for Justin Jefferson. Like it would have been gross.
He would have invented the next wave of gritty.
Literally, he did it on a pass breakup on a second down. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think would have happened on an? You know what? Again, it's just crazy. Jaire Alexander played one of his best games as a pro. It feels good. Feels good that they are going to have a good chance to go into the playoffs. Hopefully, they get to face Minnesota again.
It's unlikely.
Well, we will see. Probably not. I think the best
Cardinals got to win a game.
Yeah, and it's not even like Kyler or even like Colt McCoy. It's Trace McSorley. So
Brock Purdy.
Just an elite quarterback matchup. And you know what? When we talk about the NFC wildcard, I want to pick your brain on something.
Real quick. I have to pee. I have you in my AirPod, so I'm gonna go pee. I can still hear you, but I'm gonna mute. I'll be right back.
Okay, gotcha. I will set the table for our next topic then. The AFC South crown. It's up for grabs this week. Obviously, we saw what happened last week with the Titans and the Jags. The Titans rested all of their players pretty much, and got held in there with the Cowboys for a little bit, and then the Cowboys pulled away. Meanwhile, the Jaguars played most of their players for a good amount of the game. Got up, I believe it was 28-0. Then CJ Beathard came in. They beat the Texans. I think it was 31-3. This division one, it's not super good, but man, I don't know how the answer to who wins the AFC South. I don't know how it's not the Jaguars. The Titans have been horrible this second half of the season. Part of it being their starting quarterback wasn't very good. And the rest of it being that their backup quarterback is not better than their starting quarterback. They've now lost 6 straight. Their last win was, of course, against the Packers. Before that, it was the Broncos. You look at all their wins so far this year, don't have a single solid one, really. Like Raiders, Colts, Commanders, Colts, Texans, Broncos, Packers. Looks rough. Extremely rough. And then you look, down the stretch, they've already lost to the Jaguars by 14 a couple of weeks ago at home. Now they're playing at Jacksonville for the division. Saturday night football. It's got to be the Jaguars. It has to be. Trevor Lawrence is already, I'll come out and say it. He's a top 5 quarterback. He's number 5. Trevor Lawrence is here. Am I jumping the gun a little bit? Maybe, but I'm willing to jump the gun for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has been, when I talk about, because again, obviously everyone was high on Trevor Lawrence. For me, it's a little bit special because he was the first high school football player I've ever watched highlights of. Like that, I don't know.
Really?
He showed
Okay.
up on my like my Instagram on like the Discovery page, or he showed up on like a an NFL highlights account, and they were just showing like, oh, this kid's gonna be fantastic. He's the number 1 rated quarterback. And ever since then, I've been it's not been difficult to follow his career, but I've been following his career. Obviously, Clemson. The fact that he's probably the best college football player to never win a national championship, to never win a Heisman. He's just incredible. I think, the top 5 goes Mahomes at 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3. And then honestly, because I think the Jags are going to win this game, and I think that the Chargers are sealed into that 5 spot, the winner of that game gets 4, the loser gets 5. I could easily see after this one having Justin Herbert be ranked lower for me than Trevor Lawrence. I think that Trevor Lawrence, he's here. He's a top 5 quarterback. If they beat the Chargers, obviously, if they beat the Chargers and Justin Herbert throws 4 touchdowns, and somehow Trevor Lawrence throws 4 picks, and the Jags still somehow win, then I'm gonna obviously eye test wouldn't tell you that, but he's done. We talk about all the the lack of weapons that Justin Herbert has, and with even though he has Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and granted they're not the best weapons, but they're better weapons than Trevor Lawrence has. He's been, he had Laviska Shenault. His number 1 is Christian Kirk. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't had a guy. He had to deal with Urban Meyer. But yeah, that's he'll finally get Calvin Ridley, but we're going to be looking at a Calvin Ridley who hasn't played in a year and a half. Like I think that we don't know. Granted, I think receiver is probably one of those positions where it's easier to pick up. You can still go out and run routes and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, I'm taking the Jaguars. I'm sure you want to make a comment about my Trevor Lawrence hype. But yeah, who do you think wins? And then if you want to comment on the hopefully future second best quarterback in the NFL, Trevor Lawrence, please go on ahead.
Well, here's the thing. I was not expecting you to make that jump to say Trevor Lawrence is a top 5 quarterback. Because I wanted to do that.
Oh, really?
100%. I think we are seeing a Jaguars team that next year could compete for the AFC. Legitimately. This is a team that believes fully in their quarterback. They had a few pieces here. Now, Travon Walker doesn't look like he was the right pick. Who would have thunk it? But in terms of the weapons, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, and he's doing this. Evan Ingram is having a career resurgence with Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Justin Herbert right now. With how they're playing, Herbert has not looked great. And I'm telling you that as someone who has him in a number of fantasy leagues this year, and he's probably my biggest bust was Justin Herbert, because he hasn't been great as I wanted him to be this year. So I think Trevor Lawrence is already ahead of him. So it goes Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and then we're in that weird, is it Jalen Hurts this year perhaps? But also he has such a great supporting cast. Is it Aaron Rodgers with how he's been playing recently? There's an argument. Lamar Jackson when he's healthy, there's an argument. I think Trevor Lawrence absolutely belongs in that conversation with how he's playing right now. And I think this is a team that not enough people are talking about. This is a team that will compete in the AFC for years.
And here, I want to throw in a little bit of comment. And this is going to hurt going in, but it's going to, I think, for everyone, but it's got to, I think we need to stop putting Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in the top 10 debates, because I think it's difficult to judge their full bodies of work versus like a Trevor Lawrence. Who's better all time? Sure. I think it's a little bit difficult to judge those. And again, I think that they should be grandfathered in as top 10 quarterbacks. But I think if I'm making a debate about who the top 10 quarterbacks are, I think this is coming from a Rodgers fan and yes, a Brady hater, but grouping it, I think that they should be if someone says they're top 10 quarterback, yes, sure, we'll give it to them. But I think if I'm listing my top 10 quarterbacks, I don't think they would necessarily be in it. Does that make sense?
If we're talking about the whole year, but if we're talking about how they're playing right now.
Yeah.
Not Brady. Yeah. Even though he had that comeback. I'm saying Rodgers is playing good right now.
his stats haven't looked good, and he's had a little bit of accuracy issues, which I'm 100% willing to give to the broken thumb. That's at least what my Packer fan is hoping in me. Hey, once he gets surgery in the offseason, he'll come back better. No, but yeah, this one was a fairly easy one. The Jaguars should win this division. They'll definitely be AFC contenders. I could 100% see them going on a Trevor Lawrence going on a, not to crown him too early, but like a Peyton Manning like tear. He's going to be in the same division that Peyton Manning was. He's going to be going up against the same level of competition that Peyton Manning was. I mean, you look, no one's scared of the Texans. No one's scared of the Titans. No one's scared of the Colts. And the Colts used to be the Jaguars. Like, Peyton Manning, and this goes for pretty much all great quarterbacks, or most great quarterbacks at least. The only one who really, I guess, didn't deal with this sort of thing would have been like Troy Aikman in terms of like the division. But it's like Aaron Rodgers has had a cakewalk division his entire career. The best quarterback in the division was Matthew Stafford. Pretty much. I mean, the other than that, it was Brett Favre at the end of his career or Jay Cutler. Tom Brady, Chad Pennington was probably the next best guy. He left just when Josh Allen got good. Peyton Manning, Steve McNair, like there's every great quarterback has gotten some sort, outside of, I guess, Patrick Mahomes probably, has gotten some sort of luck with like the teams in that division not being good. And whether that's them just flat out not being good in general, or whether they're not being good because that other guy is, repeatedly kicking their teeth in, right? Like, I'm not blaming the Bears for being bad, but like, is it that the Bears are bad, or is it that every time they match up against Aaron Rodgers, they can't beat him? I think that there is sort of, and Brady with the Jets or the Dolphins, or literally pick a team in that division because Tom Brady owns all of them. Like, I truly think that Trevor Lawrence could go on a really good run here. The similarities between him and Peyton Manning in this in their careers so far has been pretty good. I mean, like, you look, they had really bad first years, lots of turnovers, and then year two started to click. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to go on a tear here pretty soon.
Yeah. No, this is much more sustainable than the 2017 Jags, where they made the AFC Championship game and choked the lead away to Tom Brady. This team, I believe, is going to be here for a while, and I think Trevor Lawrence is solidifying himself as a top 5 quarterback in football as of today. I'm with you.
All right, and so the NFL has let's get into some of the wild card races. So the AFC wild card spot, there's a couple of teams who can still get it. Those teams being the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they lose and everyone else loses, so the Jags, and again, that's still a feasible, that's potential, like that could happen. I think it's the Jaguars play, obviously, the Titans. If the Titans win, the Titans would win the division, but the Titans cannot get the wild card spot. The Steelers would have to, if the Steelers lose and they're playing, I believe it's the Bengals not the Bengals, they're playing the Browns this week. The Dolphins, I think the Dolphins would have to lose. They're playing against the Jets this week, and then the Patriots are playing the Bills. If they all lose out, the Jags could still get in with a loss versus the Tennessee Titans. But really, I don't think that that's super likely. So, let's eliminate the Titans before the game even happens. Who do you think gets that final wildcard spot? The Patriots currently hold it. If they win, they're in. The Dolphins would have to beat the Jets, have the Patriots lose. The Steelers would need Miami and New England to lose, which is not out of the realm of possibility. They would just need to beat the Browns and then have the Patriots lose to the Bills, the Dolphins lose to the Jets. Really down to those 3 teams. Who do you think gets in?
I think the Dolphins. I think the Jets were demoralized last week by the backhand of Geno Smith. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Geno Smith was 3-0 against teams who he used to play for. And guess what? Seattle, Pete Carroll was 1-0 against former quarterbacks. We're now 2-0 against former captains this year. It's probably going to be 2-1 come Sunday if there is a game, or if it gets pushed back. Whenever we play the Rams, it's probably going to be 2-1. But for now, we're 2-0 against former captains, and that's a great place for Seattle to be. Look, in terms of Geno Smith versus the Jets. I think what that did to that organization, it showed you how human Mike White is. I think it showed that their offense does need a lot of work. Eliminated them from the playoffs. I don't know how they're going to be able to bounce back with or without Tua for the Dolphins this week. So I think the Dolphins are going to beat the Jets. I think Mike McDaniel has somewhat of a bounce back for how his team has played recently. They have not been as good as those weapons are. I think the Dolphins are just too talented to miss the playoffs. I think the Steelers have a real chance to beat the Browns. I think that could happen too. So if the Jets somehow find a way to beat the Dolphins, I could see the Steelers squeaking in. What I don't see is the Patriots beating the Bills. Now, it could happen, and if it were to happen, I feel like it would have to be something around the Patriots needing the game way more than Buffalo, but especially with where we're at right now with the Cincinnati game, I think whenever Buffalo steps back on the field, hopefully they'll have a bit of a break until that game. But I think they're going to be highly motivated for DeMar Hamlin, and as they should be. Like, they are going to be playing for their brother. They're going to be playing for the number 1 seed. They're going to be playing for a bye versus a potential matchup. And if any team right now deserves a bye, it's the team who just lost their player to critical condition. So I think, like I said, I think it's going to be the Dolphins that get in. I think if not the Dolphins, it'll be the Steelers, because I really don't see the Patriots beating the Bills on Sunday. Okay.
Oh, it took me a second. Took me a second. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think it's going to be the Steelers. I don't. Yeah, the Patriots aren't beating the Bills. Let's just be real. The Patriots are not beating the Bills, and I think that Skylar Thompson starting for the Dolphins makes it highly unlikely that they're going to win. I realize that they're playing against the Jets, and the Jets are going to be starting Mike White. But
He looked bad.
He did look bad. But Skylar Thompson hasn't been good. Skylar Thompson has just flat out not been good. They've choked away over these past however many weeks. They've now lost, I think it's 5 straight. They've lost, and granted, they've lost to some good teams. They've lost to the Niners, Chargers, Bills, Packers, and then they just last week lost to the Patriots. And now they're getting the Jets in kind of a little bit of a layup spot, but it's going to be tough. I truly think it's going to be tough for them to be able to pull this one out. Like, I think obviously that the Steelers, I don't know, what I've seen from them over the past couple of weeks, and honestly what I've seen from Kenny Pickett last, whatever it was, Sunday night, I kept sending it in the group chat. I was like, holy crap, like, he was making some ridiculous throws. Which is something that, not that I was, grinding tape, but I didn't see highlights of that from him at Pittsburgh. Like, I just didn't. That final drive that he had, he made 3 great throws. Or sorry, 2 great throws and 1 good throw. The good throw was the first one to Freiermuth, which he caught around midfield. One of the great ones was the one he threw, I think, up the seam. I think it was to Deontay Johnson. I could be wrong. Maybe it was George Pickens. And then that throw that he made to Najee Harris for the touchdown was fantastic. Was a fantastic throw. And if he can continue playing like that, I think them beating the Browns is almost a guarantee. Just because of how poor the Browns have looked. They've looked really bad. Deshaun Watson has looked not worth the amount of money the amount of draft picks, all of it. He's not been worth any of it yet. And granted, maybe next year's the year he catches fire with it, but I like the Steelers in this spot. I partly because I think that they can do it, and I don't think the 2 teams ahead of them are better than them. Obviously, the Dolphins are when the Dolphins are healthy, but the Dolphins aren't going to be healthy this year. Tua's probably done for the year. So give me the Steelers in that. It would also look good on my preseason predictions of the Steelers making the playoffs. Hey, just being honest. But the Steelers being in this, I didn't see them being in this situation however many weeks ago. They had literally, I think over the past 2 weeks, they've needed 7 games outside of their control to go their way, and they've all gone the Steelers' way. quite literally all of them. They've not had a single bad bounce. So I think that their luck probably continues. I think they get crushed by whoever the 2 seed is. But they're an exciting story. TJ Watt can make some crazy stuff happen. I think they're 5-2 when TJ Watt plays this year, which isn't shocking. He was my preseason defensive player of the year pick. It's the AFC wildcard spot is a lot more interesting than the NFC one, which we'll get to now. The NFC wildcard spot, it's down to Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay. Green Bay obviously holds all the cards. They beat Detroit, they're in. Seattle, if they beat the LA Rams, they would need Detroit to beat Green Bay. Detroit needs a Seattle loss, and they need to beat Green Bay. We already talked about who we think is going to get it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the scheduling, because there was a lot of controversy about that yesterday. There was a lot of controversy.
From the Packers' perspective, that's what's coming.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, okay, on one hand, listen, at some point you have to understand that the league is about ratings. I don't think they were going out of their way to screw the Seahawks. I think they were going out of their way to help their ratings by putting Aaron Rodgers on a primetime game at Lambeau Field. I think that's truly what it was. Because if you look, everyone else is talking about, why didn't you put Jags Titans? It's yeah, that's for the division. But one, we saw this matchup a couple of weeks ago with Ryan Tannehill, I believe, and the Jags won by 2 scores. But also, we just saw Josh Dobbs on primetime last week, and everyone complained about it. Everyone was like, who's scheduling these primetime games? We're watching Josh Dobbs versus, Dak Prescott. It's who's watching this? It's who would want to watch that? True. Obviously it's going to still get ratings because it's a week 18 game, but that's the NFL's perspective. And the other part of it is because everyone was saying I saw some Seahawks fans, not all, not even a small amount, a very, very tiny amount were the Seahawks should have been that game. And it's well, no, because if the Packers win earlier in the day, then their game doesn't matter whatsoever. Obviously, if Detroit does, then they do, and then it matters. The Packers game in primetime is going to matter no matter what. If the Seahawks win, it matters for the Seahawks, and it matters for the Packers. If the Seahawks lose, it matters for both Detroit and Green Bay. The only other game that I would have wanted to see in that spot, and again, it's this one would have made me feel a lot better in the Sunday night slot, because if the Bengals would have lost last night, again, we don't know what would have happened, then Bengals versus Baltimore would have been for the division, and I think that one should have gotten the Sunday night slot. But before that game was even played, they decided it was going to be Packers, because then you still would have gotten, granted, I don't know if Lamar would have played or not, but you would have gotten Joe Burrow versus the Bengals or the Ravens, and that was a good game earlier this year. And again, I think that everyone's talking about the competitive disadvantage, and I get it a little bit. I truly do. I understand that there is going to be a slight competitive disadvantage, but on the other hand, they must not know Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, one, his opening press conference, you saw him about biting kneecaps. But also last year they were a 2-14 team, and they went in the last week. The Packers played their starters for a half, and the Lions were beating the Packers starters at halftime. They wound up winning the game. Dan Campbell has come out and said, we're playing, this is a playoff game regardless what happens in that Seattle game. Because although the Packers don't hate Detroit, because for the most part, as cocky as it sounds, Detroit hasn't posed a threat to them. Our rivals aren't the Lions. Yeah, we're in the same division, but we're not rivals. But the Lions hate the Packers, and rightfully so. The Lions they're either fighting for a playoff spot or they're playing spoiler maker for the Packers, for a team that they hate. I don't know. I see the issue that everyone has with it. I just don't think it's as big of an issue. The Lions aren't going to pull what was it? Who did it last year? Was it the Eagles? What they did last year to against Washington? You remember that? The final game of the year, they were pulling players because if they would have won or something like that, the Giants would have gotten in, or the Cowboys would have gotten in. It's not going to be a situation like that. I truly don't think it is. I don't know. Again, that's a Packers fan perspective. You seemed pretty disgusted with everything I was saying, so let's hear it.
Well, about Dan Campbell, I agree. He is going to try and get this team fired up no matter what. But Emmett, if you had just found out your season is over 10 minutes before kickoff or however long before kickoff, you couldn't help but have a natural human reaction to that news. And that's the problem that I have, is that no matter what, there will be a natural response. And it's not just this game where Seattle got screwed over. Seattle got screwed over in a number of ways by the schedule for the final week. And yes, we have to handle our business against the Rams, and Pete Carroll's focused on that. I still think we're going to lose to the Rams, so it's probably not going to matter. So just a heads up, I think the NFL's gamble is going to work, because then the game is for the playoffs, and whoever wins makes the playoffs. But in terms of the pick from Denver, right, the Denver game is going to depend on seeding or with the Chargers, if they're even going to play starters or not, because the Chargers are relying on that Baltimore-Cincinnati game. If the Baltimore-Cincinnati, right now there's 2 times that the Baltimore-Cincinnati game could have. It could be at 1 Eastern or it could be at 4:25 Eastern. If it's in that 1 o'clock window, the Chargers could have nothing to play for by the time their game comes around. Denver wins a game, our pick drops. The other thing is that we also care about that Minnesota versus Chicago game, not just because we have a chance to play Minnesota if we do end up making the playoffs, but Chicago is the only team outside of Houston right now with a pick higher up in the draft than Denver. And so by having Minnesota playing first thing in the morning and not knowing the outcome of that 49ers game, that's what's supposed to be happening with Seattle and Green Bay, or having them play at the same time. The problem is now it's almost inevitable the 49ers are going to beat the Arizona Cardinals. But the Vikings aren't going to be able to know that, because they're playing first thing in the morning. So we need Chicago to win so that it knocks their draft pick back, so that Denver's moves up. But they're playing a very motivated, just got embarrassed Vikings team who needs to win the game in order to stay in contention for the number 2 seed and potentially play the 49ers if both teams make it past the first round of the playoffs in Minnesota, right? So there are 3 different angles in which way the NFL just said proverbial middle finger to Seattle. And I think that's part of the frustration in Seattle right now. It's that it wasn't just our game, which I still think, I'm saying we're probably going to lose to the Rams. But that doesn't mean the NFL schedule makers did the right thing, because putting both this game at the same time as that Lions game, all those players who have a sigh of relief if Seattle does win. Imagine Seattle wins this game, and Detroit Lions player, you see Dan Campbell going crazy, but you see players giving up on the field, which we don't know that it's going to happen. But what if that did happen, and the Packers win, and the Lions are just like, they're got their palms facing the ceiling, just like, what's going on? All that. What if that happens? Seattle fans are going to be furious, absolutely furious, and for good reason.
And here's the thing: once they made the decision that it wasn't going to be, Jacksonville, Tennessee, I think that the Packers game was the next best option, truly, for that slot, because if they were set on doing it before we knew what that Bengals-Ravens game was going to be, if they were, that's what has to happen, then I think that the Packers game is the best one, because that one is, all the other games could happen, and that game still means something for at least someone in terms of playoffs, right? It's tough because, okay, on one hand, there is that there is that competitive balance thing, and Detroit should be fine, but you could say the exact same thing. What if Seattle's winning at the same time? The scores are going to be shown around the stadium. What it's, what?
They do the thing where they intentionally don't show the score. Seattle did it in the past.
Okay, but just because they do, let's say they, again, it's not like Green Bay cares. Green Bay is going to be showing those scores, right? If it was in Detroit, sure, you could make that argument. What if they show that score and Seattle's up 21-0 in the third quarter? You don't think that that's going to dishearten the Detroit players? I don't think there's a good way around it unless you're asking Green Bay to black it out, which we know that they're not going to. It was the next best game. And again, on the other hand of things, this sounds like crap, but this could have been had the Seahawks just handled their business. Like and the whole like again, I put out a thread on this on Twitter. I'm not sure how much of it you saw, but it's like, I'm hearing about all this like, oh, the schedule makers are screwing the Seahawks. It's like, okay, here are the Seahawks' last 7 games: home, away, home, home, away, home, home. You got 5 out of your last 7 at home, and you're going to tell me about how the schedule makers are screwing you over. You just beat the Jets.
San Francisco 49ers, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now we get our arch nemesis that always kicks our butt in the Los Angeles Rams. I'm not saying it was a gimme. I'm saying we should have performed better.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, heading into Week 17, the whole point is to make it so that you don't know your season's over before kickoff.
Right, and the Seahawks, right, but like at some point there's like what game if Jacksonville is sitting there, like if they're putting the Jacksonville in the Saturday slot, what game are you putting in Sunday Night Football?
The Ravens Bengals.
Again, they were putting that on before the game. They had the Packers one in before the game. If the Bengals would have won that game against the Bills, the Bengals have the division locked up. Then Baltimore already has their spot locked up. Then no one's fighting for anything.
Well, and we can't make that assumption because that game didn't finish, so we don't know that. We don't know that.
Right.
And I'll take the fight for the division. Mike Vrabel could win Coach of the Year this week with a win against Jacksonville.
He's not winning Coach of the Year.
I don't think he will, but if he has an outstanding defensive performance, come on, I have a defense. Defense is fun to watch too for the old heads out there.
Listen. I 100% expected it to be Packers, or I expected it to be Titans Jags. That's what I thought it was going to be. But for obvious reasons, they didn't want to put Josh Dobbs in primetime. And I got to be honest, not to sound like I'm apologizing for the league, I get it. You get it. Would you want to watch Josh Dobbs in primetime?
If it means my Seahawks have a better chance of making the playoffs, yes.
Oh, my God. Better chance. No, again, you and me both agree. Because, again, I'm saying focus on the Rams, because I don't think you're beating the Rams either. Like, you've beaten Sean McVay 2 times in 6 years. I don't think that this year is going
John
to be...
Wolford and Jared Goff.
Well, hold up. And John Wolford, yes. And Jared Goff and the field goal missed by that much. Like, I think that the Seahawks fans are overblowing it a little bit. But here, like... And I understand that I'm coming from it from a Packers fan perspective. And does my game being in primetime, well, one, not even talking about the Seattle game, does my game in primetime versus Jared Goff against Detroit with my season on the line favor me? Very much so. I think so. The Packers don't lose a whole lot of primetime games. They for sure don't lose a lot of primetime games at home. And they for sure do not lose primetime games at home to the Lions. So I do think that favors me. But again, if I'm in this situation next year, you can hold my feet to the fire. You should have taken care of your business. You should have. You take care of your business, and you're not in this situation.
You know you're not going to be in this situation because you know your team's going to be better next year.
Better, but I don't know what that means. I thought my team was going to. Well, granted, that was looking back on it, really dumb take. But like I thought my team was going to be better this year than it was last year. I thought my defense was going to be fantastic. I don't know. Granted, I've seen them the past 2 weeks, but I saw what they did. I saw what they did in the NFC divisional game against San Francisco and hold them to 6 offensive points. And then I saw them the very next week that they played, which was week 1, give up 180 yards to Justin Jefferson and not adjust whatsoever in that game. So I don't know what my team is going to be. I could very well be fighting for that last wild card spot, especially if you take a look around the NFC and Philly's probably going to be good next year. I think Dallas is still going to be good next year. The Giants, I don't know. Probably. Who knows? Like Seattle could definitely be good. Like there's a very good chance that my team's fighting for one of these spots, and like the same thing's happening next year. Again, my team, for as much crap as I have given them this year, handled business down the stretch. One team handled their business and is getting rewarded with a primetime game. The other team lost to Sam Darnold and Derek Carr, who just got benched for Jared Stidham at home. Like I think.
Let's. How about this, Emmitt? How about this? regardless of what happens in the Seattle games, let's make a little wager.
Uh-oh.
Okay? And this isn't going to be like one of those bad wagers. This is going to be a good wager.
All right.
Okay? If your Packers win, no, let's start with my side. If the Lions win on Sunday night, regardless of what happens with Seattle, I'm getting some Lions gear. I'm getting some Lions gear. But if your Packers win, you got to get some new Packer gear. How about that?
I have to get some new Packer gear?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know. It's a good bet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So if the Packers win, I get myself a new little something, and if the Lions win, you get yourself a Lions.
I'll get myself. Yeah.
Nice little Jared Goff jersey. Yeah.
No. Let's slow down there, Captain. Might get some Aiden Hutchinson. Might get Jamison Williams. Might get Amon-Ra St. Brown.
There you go.
Might just get a Lions t-shirt. But if the Lions win, I will get myself some Lions gear so I can taunt you forever.
There we go. Yeah, sure. Again, it's the poetry of this season of, the Packers having one of their worst seasons since 2018. The Seahawks having a unbelievable season for their standards this year. And it coming down to week 18 and your entire fate is in my hands. Didn't see this happening a couple weeks ago. I did not see this happening.
You want a cookie? Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith. Who's better?
We know who's better. It's not a conversation. As I posted it, I posted it, and I got no response from anybody. I was expecting to get some messages, but I wrote an article about how bad Aaron Rodgers' season has been, and what they should do next year. I'm sure you saw it. Hey, one of my favorite Aaron Rodgers quotes. Down years for me are career quarterbacks for others, or are career years for others. Hey, he's proven it right. This is a down year for Aaron Rodgers, and him and Geno Smith, here we are sitting, same record, similar stats. Geno has better stats, but the stats are similar.
So what's happening with Jordan Love, man? What's the game plan there? What is he? You just gonna trade him? You keeping him? You gonna pay him? What's happening?
Listen, I have no idea. So here was what my game plan will be. Next year is Rodgers' final year, I think. I think because Rodgers has talked. Everyone keeps talking about like, oh, what if Rodgers wants to be traded at the end of this year? He's not gonna be. Like Rodgers has talked too much about, especially this year and last year, about how much he wants, like, his legacy in Green Bay matters to him. Being a person who plays every year of his career in Green Bay matters to him. Like, I don't think he's going to be shipped off to some team and then all of a sudden, like, and he's already talking about retirement. Like, he's not going to get shipped off to a team. Like, it's not like a Tom Brady situation where Brady never talked to, like, this year was the first year he talked about retirement. Like, we knew once he signed with Tampa Bay, we're like, he probably has 4 or 5 years left. Like with Rodgers, it's a year-to-year thing. But I
put him on the Patriots.
Their defense is really good. Man, it would be a serious. We know how low I was on their weapons mid-season. That Patriots weapon room is a huge downgrade from even the Packers.
It would just, first of all, if he went there, people would come with him. Like, not necessarily from Green Bay, but from all around the NFL.
Potentially.
And it'd be a honeymoon between him and Bill Belichick, who always speak so highly of each other.
And that again, if this was a couple of years ago, back in like 2018, yeah, I would have probably agreed with you. But I think Rodgers, this is his next year will be his last year. He'll come back for one more run, and then the rest of it. Obviously, there's all these potential. Everyone keeps saying it's a rumor that Jordan Love's going to request a trade. It was a column from a Packers columnist thinking that if Rodgers starts, Jordan Love might request a trade. So the whole like Jordan Love is going to request a trade if he's not the starter next year, I think has gotten a little bit overblown. But yeah, Rodgers next year will be his last year. Then I think they move forward with Jordan Love. Yeah, I think they potentially, because I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. My preseason prediction looks like is probably going to be wrong on the Packers making the Super Bowl. But I think that they may have potentially, and again, I'm going to take playoffs over no playoffs every day of the week, but they might have potentially burned a potential like way for people to see Jordan Love or for them to find out what they have. But they seem pretty set on what they have. It sounds like the GM Brian Gutekunst has already kind of made his decision that they're going to pick up the 5th-year option. So again, Rodgers, you can't have them both on the roster for Jordan Love's 5th year. And I think next year is going to be Rodgers' last year. We'll see what they do in the draft. I don't know when their draft pick is going to be. Hopefully it's 32, but I highly doubt it. We'll see. We'll see, man. Jordan Love, everyone, I understand that he looked good in the Eagles game, but he also threw like 8 passes. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's easy to look good in that small of a sample size. And like, this is the same Jordan Love, like we saw throw a bunch of interceptions in the preseason. Like, I don't know. It's hard to, it's hard to really grade a dude who I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jordan Love has like less than 60 career passes in the NFL. Like I don't understand how I'm supposed to grade him. He has 21 attempts this year. Over his entire career, he has 83 pass attempts. He has 50 completions. I don't know how I'm supposed to grade that. It's a gigantic wild card.
I'll tell you this much, Emmitt. The only way you pick him 32 in any of these upcoming years is if you trade up for another first-round quarterback.
Yeah. I'll agree with you on that one. I think regardless of what happens next, as much as, and here, listen, if the Packers somehow magically went on just an incredible run, Rodgers picked it back up to like MVP Rodgers level for the playoffs, and they won the Super Bowl this year, I think you would call it quits. If not going to happen, but if it did, I think you would call it quits. I don't think he'd make the same mistake Brady made. Like Brady, obviously there was some money left on his deal, but Brady after the 2020 Super Bowl should have just called it quits. Like that would have been the ultimate exclamation point. It took me 1 year without Belichick to go win another one. Peace out. I'm gone. Like I think he could have done that. I think again, it's not that I want to see the end of Rodgers, but I do want to see the start of Jordan Love. And I think that a Super Bowl this year, or obviously if it happened next year, don't think it's going to happen again, but if it happened next year for sure, that would be Rodgers, like swan song, send off, all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
you need to pay Jordan Love. You need to pay him 50 completions out of 83. That's so good. That's so good. You saw his connection with Christian Watson. He came in and balled.
Listen, I don't think they're going to be paying him, but yeah, they need to figure out what they're going to do. I think that they have a plan, but I have no idea what that plan is yet. They're going to have a wild offseason. They're going to have to move a lot of money around because they're going to be in cap hell, regardless whether Rodgers returns or not. They still haven't even paid Rashawn Gary yet. Yeah, they have a really wild offseason. They have a lot of holes on their defense, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, for me, show on Friday morning, 10, I believe it's 10 a.m. or it's noon. Let me check here. It is going to be noon on Friday with Chris Perfett. He is the host of the Pride of Detroit POD cast with SB Nation. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about the Lions versus the Packers game. We're going to preview that. Then on Sunday night, I'm not sure if this has been announced yet, but I'll say it here and then I won't put it out anywhere else. But Sunday night, going to be doing a Sunday Night Football watch party with Justin, Marcus, myself. I believe that's going to be on Justin's channel. Not 100% sure, but I think that's where it's going to be for the Packers Sunday Night Football game, which hopefully puts them into the playoffs and hopefully versus the Minnesota Vikings.
Can you invite me to this, please? Can I invite myself? Is that?
I'll ask Marcus. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. It's just
just out of nowhere.
Like, no. Just like he definitely let him know. I just like invite me, and then I'll decide if I'm coming based on how things are going.
I gotcha. Kind of yeah. No, why would you want to be there for a Packers win? I don't understand.
Me personally, I could never.
I figured. Hey, you can find him at Noah Boelter TV, at the Bolt on Instagram, Twitter. For me, at Emmitt J. Sevores, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. At the Emmitt Sevores Show on Instagram as well as TikTok, and then at the ES Show on Twitter. I've been posting a lot of clips on Instagram lately. All of the clips from this one, or most of them at least, from our most exciting topics are going to be going up on the YouTube, on the Instagram. So feel free to check those out. If you somehow skipped to the end and didn't watch any of it and you want to go back and watch it, just a couple days on my channel, all those videos should be back up. Noah, thank you very much for hopping on the Emmitt Sevores Show, episode 2. Again, I'll be back Friday with Chris Perfett of the Pride of Detroit POD cast at noon Pacific Standard Time, not noon Eastern Time. And I'll see you guys next time.